bonjour, comment allez-vous, y'all? Comment allez-vous? Happy Sunday. C'est bonjour, c'est magnificence. And merci for tuning into the LRGA Curves this morning while we are doing our first movie review. And the movie is Chevalier. Yes, and so I am using my French accent. It's very thick, and you will be able to understand everything I'm saying to you throughout the very, very French movie, Chevalier. Yes. Bonjour, Bianca. Bonjour. C'est bon, mon ami. Thank you for popping through. Yes. Thank you. I hope you are smashing my buttons on the way in. Smash the like button, smash the subscribe button, ring the bell so you can get notified next time I'm uploading a video on the YouTube streets over here. C'est bon? C'est bon. Okay, now I'm going to speak in English, y'all. Smash my buttons. Thanks for tuning in to LRGA Curves. Me and Corey could not wait to come and do this review of Chevalier. Now, I don't know if y'all have seen it. It was in the movies, and they hurried up and released that thing to Hulu, girl. They hurried and released it to Hulu. I was like, they could have gave the brother a little more time to make money in the movies, but I was glad it was on Hulu because I didn't have to go to the movie house to see it. And we are going to review it for you today. Corey, if you are able, can you put your link in the freaking chat so that people can follow you over there and find you in these YouTube
Sure.
Appreciate it if you could do that. How are you this morning, beautiful?
I am excellent.
Oh, the excellence. Yes, you can never tear down the excellent French woman or Frenchman. And we are going to talk about it in the movie Chevalier. Yes, c'est bon. So, you guys, have you seen Chevalier? Have you heard of Chevalier? I had heard of him, but not to this extent. I was so glad to go back and do a little studying up on him. Fascinating story. Fascinating, you guys. Fascinating. Let me tell you a little bit about it. Chevalier is, what do they say he is? He was, go right here, turn this down. Sorry, you guys, I'm pulling up my notes. Okay, so Chevalier was born the illegitimate son of an African slave and a French plantation owner from Guadeloupe. And his name was Joseph Bologne, and it is spelled like Bologna, O-S-C-A-R. My Bologna has a second name. It's Joseph Chevalier. Okay. Anyway, so Joseph was the illegitimate son, and he was raised to improbable heights in French society as a celebrated virtuoso violinist-composer and fencer. And he had a complete love affair and falling out with Marie Antoinette. So we are going to look into that today. The movie I thought was done very well. And like I said, it's available on Hulu. His dad dropped him off. So the movie starts with a young boy fencing. No, he was violining first. Okay, so that's what happened in the first scene. Mozart is up on stage. A young Mozart. Yes, that Mozart was up on stage doing his violin stuff. And he takes suggestions from the audience. When a beautiful black man stands up and says, how about this number 5 thing? And he's like, oh yeah, I can play that. He said, can I join you? And he's like, oh, a dark stranger's coming to join us, because the man was black. So they called everything dark that was black back then. That's why I'm convinced, you guys, side note, that the Dark Ages must have been when the Moors were ruling. Duh. Anyway, don't take me down a rabbit hole today. So he gets up on the stage, and Mozart thinks, oh, who's this black man think is coming up here? I'm definitely going to play better than this man. So Mozart starts plucking his little violin things, and the black man, the first time he strung a chord on the violin, you could feel the soul ooze through the vibration of the violin thing. And then the little notes and nuances that he was able to add to the concerto that Mozart couldn't do ended up ultimately pissing Mozart off, and he walks off the stage, right? So then it flashes back to when he began his being able to play the violin. So it looked like he was maybe about, I don't know, it appeared maybe between 8 and 10 when his father, the white man who was the plantation owner in Guadeloupe, France, and it's actually spelled like Guadalupe, you guys.
It's in the Caribbean.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was like, well, is that how the Caribbean place got named? Was from somebody from that place? Possibly. So then his dad brought him to this very white colonial school that was all about excellence and, you know, drawing out the excellence of the young people in that school. That was what they were known for, was drawing out your excellence. If you had a gift, they could draw it out. So his white father takes him, a mulatto, to the school, and all the people in their colonial, they're all just looking at him on the way in and mad dogging him. And then he's sitting down very proper, and the school headmaster, this dude in a wig, everybody wore wigs too. I don't know what's up with that, but everybody wore wigs. And so the headmaster's like, I don't think this is a place for your mulatto discretion. You know, I'm sure you can find a better place to hide your indiscretions, because obviously he cheated on his wife with a slave and made this baby, and he's trying to hide his illegitimate son. That's what the headmaster's thinking. And so the father's like, well, it's the least I could do for him because he does have a talent. And they were like, a talent? And he's like, yeah. So he makes this sound to his son. He goes, like Sarah Palin. And the son stands up with his violin and plays this beautiful, soulful piece. And the headmaster's eyes just pop open, and his mouth is ajar, and he's looking at the mulatto boy and looking at the father like, how could this be so? Because, you know, they considered us subhuman. And therefore, being a subhuman, how are you even supposed to know how to pick up a violin and a bow? Except for that, hey, we probably made it anyway. But you know how it goes along with all of those harmful stereotypes from back then to help the color lines be drawn, right? So anyway, so then he ends up getting accepted to the school, even though the headmaster's like, he's going to have a hard time here. He's not going to be accepted really here, but you can leave him if he wants to because he has a talent. So he gets left, and his father leaves him with this word. He looks his mulatto son in the eye and says, now you have your place, and I want you to be an excellent Frenchman, because nobody can tear down an excellent Frenchman. Be excellent. And though that was the last time he heard from his father gets in the carriage and leaves. And then it shows him growing up in this basically boarding school, constantly being bullied, constantly being, kicked in the halls, pushed in the halls, stomped on in the halls, and everything, only to emerge from all of that abuse as a violin virtuoso and a premier fencer. So the next scene is he goes and he's in front of Queen Marie Antoinette and a little court thing. And they're doing this introductions for the two fencers. So the first introduction was for a white person. And so they're like Oh, he's the greatest. He's the almighty. And he's here to defeat the darkness. The dark Negro is our enemy. And he's here to defeat him. And surely he'll be able to defeat this Joseph Bologna. So then Joseph Bologna's introduction came from his best friend, who is like, the world is changing and so is France. And this Negro, Joseph Bologna, is the premier fencer of France, and you're about to see it. So they end up having a fencing match. And Joseph Bologna, who becomes Chevalier, his form is exquisite. His jousting skills, his little lunge thingy majiggies, everything magnificent. The white guy who he was fighting against is like, uh-oh, guy's in trouble now. So he cheats and he ends up, they're in a fence fight. They're literally supposed to be using swords. And that fool turns around and socks Joseph Bologna because he can't get a lick in. And Joseph, being the ever excellent Frenchman, does not even let him see him sweat. He said, and he readjusted, and the next sword swipes drew blood. And then the next sword swipe drew some more blood. And then the next sword swipe drew some more blood. They had to skip the thing and make Joseph the winner. And of course, Marie Antoinette was taken. She stood up and she's like, oh, I've heard all about you. And now to see you in action, I name you Chevalier de St George. And Chevalier, for those of you who don't know, is the French word for lord. So she basically made him a lord of her court. And that was unheard of because he was a dark person in that specific court. So he immediately got access to the finest silks, the finest wigs, the finest little heeled shoes, the finest undergarments, and the finest wine, along with his pick of the finest women. And he fast fell into the court life. And nobody ever treated him like he was a Negro. Nobody. And I can see how being excellent, even in these days, that's part of what Black people have to do, is be excellent. So you don't have time to notice the things that you've been taught about the stereotype things that you should be thinking about us. But if we're excellent, then you usually just look at our excellence. So I'm like, oh, well, this kind of feeds into even today's society about how Black people need to show up to the movie. So they're in the movie and he's walking around the court, and I had to call Corey on this part, you guys. He was like, I think that the actor who plays Chevalier, let me look up his name again. But the actor, I think that he was channeling Prince, you guys. I'm pretty sure he was channeling a bit of Prince. Yes, the Prince, the symbol himself. Because some of his little eye things and his little shoulder things, I was just like blown. Corey, did you see it too?
I saw it. Yeah. Oh, he was the actor is sexy as hell too. Ooh.
He is. Oh my God. Okay, so here's the cast. So Chevalier Joseph Bologna is played by Kelvin Harrison Jr. Marie Antoinette was played by Lucy Boynton. And the Montalembert, who was the evil man who hated the darkness, i.e. Negroes. He ever since the fencing thing, he had a problem. He was watching Joseph, and he would have done something horrible to Joseph had he not became Chevalier. And so he had been watching from the side the whole time, and he was like the dark horse for Marie Antoinette. And then Felipe played Joseph Bologna's best friend throughout the film, and he was part of the revolution. He was part of the revolt. He was like trying to get France to change. You know, like the people were overtaxed. There was homelessness, there was disease, and all the whole time the court's behind the French court walls, having parties, sex, and all the wine and cake they can have every day. And so Felipe, while he was part of that court, he actually was like, everybody needs, they called it égalité. Égalité means everybody's equal. And so everybody needs to be equal. I thought it was beautiful. So then they show him at the court, and all the women of the court wanted Chevalier's large member and his company. And so he was propositioned by Minnie Driver's character, who played Marie Madeleine, the opera singer of the age. And she was like, come to my carriage so we can rehearse. And he's like, I want to be friends. Let's keep it professional. Because he wasn't interested in her. So then he's walking around and he goes to another room and he hears this enchanting voice. And the voice was none other than Marie Josephine, an up-and-coming opera singer. So, okay, let me backpedal a little bit. They also had a scene right before this where Marie Antoinette and Chevalier were on a date in the opera house, and they were like, oh my God, Minnie Driver's voice, talking about Minnie Driver's character, Marie Madeleine. Oh, she's aging. She sounds horrible. Everything's showing. We need to bring this opera house back to life, and we can't have her at the lead if we're going to do it, kind of thing. And he's like, I can put them all in their misery. And I actually thought from that scene that they might have been more than just Chevalier and Queen. And now to hear that they may have actually been lovers at one time, I could see that happening because they were very familiar with each other, even in that scene, huh, Corey?
Well, yeah. Well, which Louis was that? Louis the 14th was not interested in sex when they first got married, because they were both, Marie Antoinette was 16 when she came to Versailles. And she had to save her kingdom,
Right.
And if she didn't produce an heir, she was out of there. And she had to produce an heir before Louis's brother.
Did she ever produce an heir?
And that did not happen. She did produce an heir. She produced a girl. Then another girl.
That's not considered an heir.
And then finally, the heir. So because he was interested in clockmaking. Not clockmaking, making keys. That was Louis the 14th's thing. He was a nerd,
Yeah.
And so he wasn't getting it on with her.
Oh.
Like he should have been. He was worried about making keys and doing other things. And, Marie was very, 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 they say naivete about everything and about everything that was going on in the French country. They weren't responsible for leading. They were just figureheads, right?
Yeah.
So all that let them eat cake bull crap was a rumor, that the papers drummed up to make her look even more.
Oh, okay. I understand. So that's part of why we're giving it away. But at the end, that's part of why things ended up that way, was because people already saw her and him together. Exactly. So she had to make a hard line that, no, we not together, and this is what I'm ready to do for it. Oh, thank you, Corey.
So she was already being watched, and she was also a lot of people were taking advantage of her. So she also had to take a hard line, and she couldn't be seen as giving this black man this privilege. And then she was also, she had a little person, a black little person, attendant or whatever, and she popped out a black baby, y'all.
No way.
Yes way. She was having fun with the little person.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Marie
See,
was a
maybe
very
she.
naughty woman.
Well, c'est naughty women. The French are very free. You know, they are free with their
Mm-hmm.
love. See.
And
Yes. Yes.
so
So okay. So Marie, she came to France, but was she French?
no, she's German.
Yeah, because I didn't think that accent. I was like, where they? She's not even trying. That's what I thought when I was watching the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
She's
she's not even
German.
trying for her accent.
She's a minor German. She was a minor German princess. Yes. Mm-hmm. Just like Charlotte,
Ah,
just like Queen Charlotte, a minor German princess. Mm-hmm.
ah,
Because
wow.
the Sun King was on his way out. He was dying.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I love this whole period. The Queen Charlotte, the Bridgerton, the
Mm-hmm.
Marie Antoinette of it all. Like, yeah, I'm very interested in all of that stuff.
Side
In
note,
that whole time.
this is where Christian Louboutin got the idea of the red souls. Why? Because only the noble people, the noble men, wore the high heels with the red soles. That's how you knew they were noble.
Oh, c'est le pourtant
Yes,
New of Zealand
Christian
brought it back, huh?
Louboutin. Christian Louboutin, another black man. He's half black and he's half Egyptian.
No way!
That's way. And then he was adopted by a white family. Mm-hmm.
That is excellent to know.
Yep.
So he was a virtuoso of the shoe, and the other one is a virtuoso of the violin.
Yes.
And they both changed his. Oh yeah, look at him. He looks very. He does.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, why can't I see an image of him? Oh yes, the French fashion designer. His stiletto footwear incorporates a shiny red lacquered soles. Yes, may we? Oh, look at you, Corey. I love how you be knowing all the stuff. You're like
Yeah.
freaking. Who's the guy in Cheers who knew all that stuff? Cliff? Was that Cliff?
Probably.
Cliff was a mailman and he knew everything at the Cheers bar. They could say something and he would be like, yeah, wasn't he the one that did that? It wasn't Norm.
So. No, it wasn't Norm. Norm was
was
just trying
Cliff.
to get away from his wife.
Yeah, it was Cliff the postman, knew something about everything. It was amazing. I used to love his character. Excellent. So
this
then
is my favorite history period.
Oh, really? So you take over the next scene, Corey.
Okay. So after that, Chevalier was like, I can make it better. I really can. She was like, it's too much work. It's too much work. And he was like, no.
This is about the opera thing, you guys. This is about the opera thing.
I can take this and make it huge, and you'll be grateful, and they won't be on your back about making it better, and it'll take the pressure off of you. She's like, but it's just too much work, Chevalier. It's just too much work. Too much work. What about your women and your socializing? He was like, no, I can do it. So what happens is him and the person who's already taking over the Opera de Royal, I think it's called, and they got into an argument about superiority. So Marie Antoinette was like, a contest. Whoever can make the best opera will have the run of the opera house.
Yeah, because he went against Gluck or something. What was the man's name? Let me see. Gluck. I'm looking it up.
He was an Englishman.
Yeah, from Vienna or something. Gluck.
He was from Vienna.
Chevalier. Here we go. So his name was Gluck. Christoph Gluck. Yeah. Henry Lloyd Hughes played Chevalier's competition, Christoph Gluck, who was not French, but was all the whole board at the Opera House. It was a real big to-do. And
I think
the
Sarah
board
wants
at the
to
Opera
come
House. Huh?
I think Sarah wants to come up.
Oh, I was getting that. If she saws a movie, she can come. Movie review first, history second. Because the movie review is first. Okay, so he was going against Christopher Gluck. And then, so Christopher Gluck, you guys, is at this same soiree where he just turned down Minnie Driver, where he also just saw got his first glimpse of who would become his next love interest. And so he goes over to Gluck, and what does he do?
Challenge. He challenges him. And Gluck is like,
it's a duel.
I'm better than you.
It's a duel. In English, it's a challenge, but in French, it's a duel. They do a duel.
Bonjour, Sarah. Did you see the movie?
I see the movie and I know the story because it was a French part of French history, so I know very good that situation. It's very interesting.
Okay, well, we're doing the movie, and then we can get into some history. We're on the scene where he challenges Gluck, because actually, you guys, Chevalier Joseph got used to challenging people.
Yes.
To prove himself. And then when he would become the winner, he would have an upper hand in society, basically, and they would let him. So he was doing his regular thing when he walks over to Gluck and is like, hey, I challenge you. Let's get some violins. What we got to do? Because I'm sure I can beat you. I've never lost a challenge. And Gluck was like, no. What are you, really? Are you serious? And thinking he's above a challenge. But then Marie comes over, and what's she do, Corey?
Challenge. If one of you can be the best, makes the best opera, then he will have control of the opera house. And so I don't think Marie thought that Chevalier could come up with a opera, right? So in the midst of him trying to get together, he goes to Marie, what was her name? Marie what?
Marie Josephine. Marie Josephine.
And he hears her. He was like, oh, that's the star. That's my star. I need her. If I'm gonna win, I need her. Then he goes to her cousin or sister-in-law, whatever, who is
that was her cousin. Because actually her cousin introduced them at the party that night after she said
I told her husband she was coming home unscathed, and no, you cannot have her.
Her cousin was played by Sion Clifford, and her name was Madame de Genlis. Yes. So he enlisted the help of Marie Josephine and her cousin Madame de Genlis, and was trying to get her as the lead for, guess what opera, you guys? Ernestine. That's a famous opera. And it was written by none other than Chevalier.
Yes, it's well known about that.
Wow. So he ends up telling the woman, Marie, about the play. She's like, well, what is the play even about? What is the opera even about? And he tells her, and she's like, I don't know. So then her husband comes in. And her husband is that mean man, the Montalembert. I don't know what that means, but that means devil to me. He was the Montalembert, and he was like just wreaking havoc all over the place.
Yeah, he was head of the secret police.
Yes. So he did not like Negroes or mulattoes and felt like they were a blight on society. So when this mulatto comes in with his fancy title, speaking to him as an equal, égalité, then he was really rubbed the wrong way and told him he was never going to let his wife be part of the whores and harlots of the theater so the lustful eyes of men could gaze upon his wife's body. Heck no, he said. It will never happen. So then they have to go and audition the most horrendous sounding opera singers ever. It was hilarious. Oh my goodness. It was hilarious.
Him and the cousin was just like, why?
Yeah.
It was very thin.
It was very funny. It was very funny. He was like more passion, and the lady would be like, ah, he'd be like, okay, less. It was
And all the
hilarious.
cousin wanted to do was stop being known as a children's author, and she just wanted her her salacious novel for adults to be presented.
Ultimately, an opera, his next piece.
Mm-hmm.
That's how she agreed to help even do any of it, the costumes and everything. She became a very big part of the whole opera. So then, Sarah, do you know what happened next?
I'm sorry, I don't have the movie under my thing because I see it 2 weeks ago. I remember the part where they make her the duet, the part with the love, and everything like that. But if you can
okay, no worries.
scene, I'm so sorry.
No worries.
But I remember the moment with the opera, and but I was just a little bit sad because we don't see so much. I say comic, scene on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
they cut it down very. They cut it down
a lot.
Yes, we just sometimes little bit, fun scene. But I was little bit sad because I think it was very heavy in some way. Yes, it's fighting, but sometimes it's good to lose because the moment with the opera was the only fun moment we have.
And they left out the transgender of it all.
Oh, who was transgender?
There was I guess, I don't know if it's France's first transgender woman, or the world's first transgender woman, but she was also a chevalier.
Yes, Chevalier de St. It's calling Chevalier de St. He was very well known to travesties, to be people doesn't know he was truly a man or woman. The problem of Chevalier de St.
What does he have to do with Chevalier de St George?
He was Chevalier, one of Chevalier's friends.
Same time. They was the same time.
Oh.
It's
and they didn't even address that whole friendship, is what you're saying?
No, because we have so much rumor about the link between Chevalier de St and other, things. It was during the same period. It was the revolution.
Right, but do you think them putting Philip in that role was
Chevalier de St?
I thought Philip and him were best friends, but there was a Chevalier he was best friends with also?
Yes, but Chevalier de St is very specific, character in the French history, and so much they do animation, Japanese animation theory around him was very big theory. They do documentary. It was a mystery on, like, the mask, the silver mask, the guy with the silver mask, the metal mask. It was,
Count of Opera?
You mean Count of Monte Cristo?
No. Monte Cristo, it was a story by Alexandre Dumas. It was not true at all. Monte Cristo, it was a novel by.
I want to do Chevalier this movie. We can do the history part.
Chevalier de St was the same moment of Chevalier of Bologne, Chevalier George, but it was very spy, travesty, it's very mystery. So I think it's not good to make that on the same movie, but it was, you just understand, Marie Antoinette.
They need a second Chevalier movie then.
Yeah, they do.
I would love to hear about that.
Marie Antoinette was not his mistress, what I learned. She was mistress with De Fersen, allegedly. It was another, very high level aristocrat. But Chevalier Georges, so much rumor about, maybe he was both woman and guy. So much, that we see on the movie. They try to make that implicit because we don't have any proof it's gonna be. But
I felt like he could. I felt like in that time, I felt like everybody was just having orgies, and whoever you could touch, he was touching some of the people. You know what I mean? I did see that hint of possibly Chevalier de St George was possibly bi. Like, I did see that throughout the thing, but it looked like he preferred women.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Just based off of what the show showed us.
Die anyway,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That whole entire time, everybody was just getting it in. you know.
The
And that was before all of our silly labels and all of that stuff. People could just
Exactly.
kind of live, you
remember,
know.
at this time, you have the syphilis.
Yeah, but they didn't have that
And
in the
you
movie. So in the
and you can
movie,
die of that.
Sarah, what happens in next is
Yeah.
he challenged Gluck. They went on to do Ernestine.
And then his
We were
mom
to the part
died.
where
Then
they
his
were
dad dies.
right, and we were to the part where they were having the horrible auditions. And
Yes.
then after all the auditions happened,
Oh my god, that scene was
the opera house was allegedly empty. And that's the other part. Is anything really empty? I'm sure there was prying eyes all around that place, because then here comes Marie Josephine through the side door, and Chevalier looks up and he's like, "What are you doing here? Does your husband know where you are? You know how he feels about this place." And she's like, "As it turns out, I like to make my own decisions, and I want to be in your play. He's gone for the rest of the year, and I'll take care of him. I'll manage him. I want to be Ernestine." So they get right to studying and practicing. And of course, during their practicing, they become in love, because he's her Ernestine and she's his Chevalier. And you can see that they are like, every time she's singing, she's looking right at him. He can't pry his eyes away from her. Everybody's noticing, including her cousin, including everybody else around, but nobody said anything. But then one night, he can't stop himself, and they're in the opera house, and he takes her into his arms and he kisses her on the neck, and she quivers. And then the next thing we see is them romping in the sheets every chance they got. A touch here, a stolen gaze there, a stolen touch, a romp over there, them laid up in the bed. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. But wait, you guys. In the middle of him writing Ernestine, his dad dies. So the plantation owner, what was his name? The plantation owner finally dies.
Bologne, yes, it was the same
Yes,
name.
George Bologne.
Bologne,
Bologne.
not Bologne. Okay.
Bologne, I know.
Bologne, it's a food. It's a
So is Bologne from Bologne?
No, Boulogne. In French, it's not the E. What you say E, it's for French. So Boulogne.
Oh, okay.
Boulogne.
Well, it's spelled exactly like my bologna has a first name.
Yes.
So his dad.
It's a food, Bologne. It's Bolognese.
Yeah.
Food for us.
So his dad ends up dying. And
all his servants leave because dad not paying them no more.
Right. So everybody leaves once his father dies. He's back to just being a Negro, but he still has his Chevalier title. But the St. George part is over, because as an illegitimate heir, being a mixed breed, he was left nothing. So even though he was part of the court, him being attached to St. George was part of his power. But after his father died, all his servants left, and he had to clean up after all his own orgies. And also, though, his mother got freed. So his mother, who had been a slave, finally was freed as his last act of kindness to her and the son. And so she was sent to Chevalier de St George, Joseph, and
they just drop her in the middle of Versailles.
Huh?
They just drop her in the courtyard in Versailles. They just drop her there.
Yeah, they totally dropped her in the courtyard at Versailles with her freaking bonnet and slave clothes on. And he goes out there, and he spent such a long time separating himself from his blackness. I immediately, as a viewer, was able to see the reason he didn't hug her back was because, oh shit, here I go being black, and I don't have a St. George title. Come on in the house, woman, for everybody thinking we're both black. That's how I took it. What did you think of that scene, Corey?
That's what I thought too. I was like, he's like, damn, here I go. I'm back to square one.
Yes, that's what the feeling I got from it too. What did you see? What did you think of that scene, Sarah?
for me, that thing, when you knew what is truly what a chevalier, it's not, he's losing maybe some part of the money due to the domain, the place of his father, but he always have his title. The question is to have the right, and I say, okay, it's much a question of money now at this moment. For me, it's not a question getting back, you lose everything. You lose the money. When you knew the chevalier thing, he is noble, but he doesn't have a domain, a castle. And with his father, he have it. That thing, it's, I see much he lose the money. For me, it was, I'm bankrupt.
Oh,
because yes, it's bad. The thing is, they don't explain at the beginning of the movie what it truly say. You can have a title to be a noble, but if you don't have a domain, a castle, a place who give you money, like production of food, of fruits, of vegetable. No, something give you money. The noble get money by their domain, their castle. They do grapevine, they do vegetable, they do everything. And when you lose your domain, you can have your title, but you don't have any more money. And for me, it was a moment where he was bankrupt more than anything.
Well, he seemed to have a few coins because he done bought his mama some pretty dresses.
Yes,
they could still eat, and they had that pretty flat. So I mean, he had some kind of coin somewhere.
For what you think, for our vision, but for them, it's like losing everything. If you don't have a domain, you are not a noble anymore, because you need to be the master of your domain.
True.
It's always that. It's a question of that. The moment you use your castle or your domain or your production of anything, your earth, the place you own, your land, you are not a master. You can be like we say a noble désargenté. You can have the title, but we don't have the money anymore. We don't have the land. And the land in France, you need to understand that the property is what makes you give you power.
Yes, that's correct. That's in any country.
And for me,
land brings power.
When he lose the power of his money, because how much his dad was alive, he had the access of the domain, money, and all the higher status he gave you. For me, it's more I'm bankrupt, and how I can get away of that situation as soon as possible.
But he hadn't fallen down yet.
No,
okay.
Yeah, I don't think. They didn't really reflect that. I don't think really good about any suffering that might have happened from his loss of access, aside from all the servants leaving. But his life after that didn't seem like he was wanting or destitute. I mean, all his wigs were still powdered. All his wigs were still powdered, very white, and his silk was very silky. And he still had a roof over his head too,
Yes, but it's a story of apparat. We have a movie called Ridicule in France. You can have explain you really what is life in the court. We see that. You see that with your point of view of he had, but the people of the court knew what's going behind the scene, and the repetition, it's very. I don't think the movie show the power of that boudoir life, the power of the world, because remember, it's the light it's the century of the light, and you can have with your word a power. But it's in France. At this time, the appearance is more than important than today. You can lie, but in some way, when it's coming to the money, you can lie so much enough long time.
Yes.
Right.
So it's why I don't have the same lecture for that part.
Yes.
Huh. Yeah.
So
well, that's understandable. Yeah,
so him and his mom. So his mom is settling in, right? And he did have at least one servant girl, at least a black one, right? So they must come from the same place, because they were speaking patois, honey. They were getting
they called it Wolof.
Down.
They called the language Wolof in the movie.
Okay, they was getting down. They was gossiping, and and he was like, we speak French in this house. And he was like,
Uh-huh.
okay. It was like, woo, Mastel. And then so he's having all of these struggles, and he's in love with this woman, and his mom was like, I seen you with that woman. You be sneaking in and out of here. I seen you.
The mom was not happy.
And why you just that plaything. When they're done with you, they're gonna throw you to the side. And then she was like, why don't you just put in the song that I taught you? He was like, no. There are standards and rules to this. And he was like, and she was like,
The mom back. Ooh.
And then so then on top of that, he wins. Okay, he wins. He's the man. And then that old wrinkled up, dried up hussy Minnie Driver's character says she sides with, what is his name, Gluck or Huck or Gluck. And she says, yes, you turned me down. He didn't. So
what had happened was
he's calling revanche. He wants revanche.
After they did the whole play, fell in love, they betted each other constantly. Philip ended up being like, are you crazy? You know how his wife feels, how her husband is about that. And they would always be like, oh, we can leave this place and be together. And then it was the day to find out who won. And he just knew he won because the cousin was like, oh, I heard they loved it. Everybody loved it. It was magnificent. You should be winning. But then he goes in and he jaunts in. He just knows he won. And Marie Antoinette was standing in the opera house the day to find out who won. And she does not look happy. But everybody on the stage is like, yay, we won. And he's like, Queen, what are you doing here? And she hands him a letter. And it says that there was a petition by the board and others to not let this Negro mulatto darkness scar the opera house's status. And they would never let him be in charge of anything with that much prestige. And he's like, Queen, are you gonna let this happen? Like, I'm your dude, I'm your chevalier. Like, surely I won. Like, you know I won. Like, what about the contest? Like, come on. Like,
exactly.
And she's like, I can't. It's more complicated than that. I can't have the people. I can't go against the people in this regard because you're a Negro. He's like, really? So now what his mom said about they just see you as a Negro, you're their little monkey. You're the performing little monkey. Now that's becoming real. Like, it just hit him like a ton of bricks. And so he kind of was like, really? Like, really? So he kind of starts yelling at the Queen, and she's like, I've spoken. And she leaves him. And then he ends up passing the letter to Marie Josephine and the cousin lady and Philip. And they were like devastated. They were like, really? You didn't win? And so then the next scene is him drinking his problems away. Oh, and then on top of it, the same day, the darkness came back. The husband right there, right under my picture. You see that picture of this dude right under my picture here, that guy. He comes with the malambulert. He comes back and catches him and his henchmen catch him while he's drunk after being mad that he lost about the play, and bring him down to the water side. And there she is, and the husband, he's like, I thought I told you I didn't want my wife to be in your harlot play. I have spoken, and commanded his henchmen to break every finger. He never could play his little violin again. And the wife begged and pleaded, please don't, it's all my fault. And I think that look to me was he knew
that they was doing it.
Was in love with Chevalier. What do you think, Corey?
Yes, and they was getting it on, bumping the uglies. And he was like, okay. For you, I won't break his hands this time, but stay away from my wife and don't let me catch you. And
Did you
then
think, Sarah, that look that he gave Marie Josephine was like, oh, I know you've been messing with this man?
He knew.
Yeah, he definitely
he
did.
knew everything.
He knew everything because he always have a spy. Remember, everyone speaking, everyone spying on everyone. A man at this time need to know what his wife with who. It's very complicated to have a secret. Like Marie Antoinette, she tried to have a secret, but every time she was caught.
Yes.
So I will tell you that Marie Josephine, she was on not good place. She thinks she had liberty, but at the end of the day, her husband, go exile her, say you go back. She can go.
Yeah.
She can be a nun. She can be a nun. She can be killed by her husband. He had every right on her. He can say, oh, you go back on the rural part of France, you stay on the castle and you don't speak to anyone whole in life, and you can make her in her room with her servant, and she's just gonna have the right to do some son like a jail. It's gonna be completely
like she was gonna be a kept woman in a little gilded cage.
Yes.
Yeah.
At this time it's completely possible, so we need to be careful with that.
And they reluctantly parted ways because her husband was back, because he wasn't going to get to be in the opera, and because he had actually kind of fallen in position by now. It was evident that his rise to the top was fastly coming down. And because he lost that challenge, it was the first challenge he lost. Even though it was taken from him, he still lost it. And then he lost his girl, and he didn't have any servants, and he was just drinking all the time. And so his Black mother is like,
had a whole house full of people.
Yeah, stop sulking. Come on. Let me take you down over here and leave that wig at home.
She didn't braided his hair up all nice.
Yeah, so she braided his hair and took him down to be with his people. And it was a cute little scene. I really liked that scene. I was like, if only they could leave us alone for long enough for that to be our lives forever. Just leave us the F alone.
Yep.
Let us eat, drink, and be merry. And you guys just come through and watch enough to get some rhythm and leave us the F alone. Let us thrive.
Exactly.
But it's very romanticized when you know the truth. The fact Marie Antoinette, she was speaking with him like that, really. She was very, painted like dumb, like a Parisian or maybe a kind
She
of.
was basically a Negro lover, you guys. She was a Negro lover in a country that only wanted Negroes for they didn't really want Negroes, but they had them, and which is very unfortunate, because I really like I like France, but I do not like their dark history with Black people, and how they stole those kids later on in the 70s. That's a whole other story. But so he had definitely fallen in stature.
But Marie Antoinette, she was must seem like a dumb blonde at this time, because she was not on the reality of the world she was around her. She was playing on the casino. She makes so much debt. She was in so much scandal around, a fake jewelry. She was very like, she was not really prepared to be a queen. She was very young when she come on this,
right.
She had 14, and maybe she was 20, 21, 22. I don't know how much time, but she was very dumb blonde.
Yeah, by the time of the revolution, she was about 20 something. Yeah.
Now,
yes, and she said when people come on her under the window of the castle, she said we need to eat, we need to have something to eat, we need bread. And she said it's very well known phrase, give them brioche.
Let's eat cake.
No, give them brioche in French, not cake, brioche.
Well, that's sweet bread. That's technically cake.
No, it's not a cake. It's a
sweet
brioche.
Flour and sugar is cake.
No, Larja. If you
I know what brioche is.
brioche is a cake, they're gonna be throw you. No, you can't say brioche is a brioche. Bread is a bread and cake is a cake. It's not the same thing. Brioche, it's like a viennoiserie. So we don't have a viennoiserie.
Well, how did they get let them eat cake from let them
Well,
eat
it was
brioche?
it was like it was put in like the tabloids. It was the tabloids that did it. It was a
So they had
rumor.
an inquirer.
Yeah, it was a
It was
rumor.
not a rumor. You have testimony on the journal of people. You have, French Revolution is very documented because everyone writing later, everyone do journaling. We have all the trace. It's very insane, so much information because French at this time love to write. So they write everything. You go on the toilet, it's gonna be writing on your journal. You just see a guy with a nice hat, a very sexy guy. You write on a journal. They write everything. And Marie Antoinette, we had the journal of her.
You guys have her journals?
Yes, you have so much thing. We have the letter she write before she died on the guillotine.
Yes. All of that,
Wow.
all that gambling, all of that buying of jewels and clothes, that was to, well, how do they say? That was emotional shopping. It was retail therapy because she was lonely. Her husband wouldn't touch her.
No,
and
she had a lover. She had
one job is to make an heir, and not to let her lover have make an heir before her husband.
Yeah.
Yes, and
it had to be legitimate.
She had
to be a legitimate heir.
Yeah, she had a problem to fertility and his too, so it was complicated. But she was not so much. She was like the image she gave Paris Hilton and Marilyn Monroe, a very bubbly woman, very she doesn't understand the risks she have, because when French Revolution coming, she doesn't see the consequence just at the end and of the moment, and she lose her son. Some of her son die from hemophilia. We have this problem.
Oh, hemophilia.
Yes, because you need to understand all that people of royalty in Spain, Germany, and French and England, they are connected inbred.
Because they were all cousins.
Yes.
They were inbred, and part of being an inbred is hemophiliacs.
Yes.
Exactly. So are there a lot of hemophiliacs in Virginia?
Not just that. It wasn't one thing. It's no. You have so much other thing that just hemophilia. They have problem to fertility. They have problem, with their legs too. It was very, something.
It seems like such an off-balanced transaction that, oh great, you have your pure blood, but you're a hemophiliac and deathly ill. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
we don't know for the hemophilia. The thing you need to know, at this time the medicine was very strange and bizarre. Okay.
Yeah, they were all first cousins.
Yes, but at this time we didn't know the inbreeding thing. It's just Bible say that. But in England, why you see all these people from the royal court of England with this, the neck with the deformity, it's inbreeding thing too. The English, royalty, the Egyptian royalty, so much inbreeding. You have the effect. It's why they are all very with disease with the kidney, with deformity on the leg, and with some some mental health problem, some disability and retarded some kids sometimes, and very and sometimes kids they don't have any empathy. Some are very violent kids. So
yes,
it was very hard. And the thing we don't see Gustave de Fersen was one thing I say, but it was the most well-known lover of. It was the only lover she had allegedly. I forgot the had allegedly. It was one of her lover of the well-known Gustave de Fersen. It was the lover for her love of her life. But her husband,
that's amazing.
And you can see that. Chevalier was really a miracle at this time on this court, because it was almost impossible to Black people to get this level.
Yeah, it was impossible for Black people to get that. That's why it was such a interesting story for us to find out about. But after he went on his drunk tangent, he went back with his mom, found his roots. And I have reposted one of the scenes. It was very powerful to me.
They go to jail.
When the mom was braiding the hair for him, and she's like, they take so much, they're so evil to us, and they just make it so hard for us, but we have to like fight. So I was like, cool, Mom.
But you
can
know,
always fight.
what is very strange, I say that actually, it was on the time of the Lumière. And the Lumière, the lightness, it was to get away from the darkness of the mind, to get away, to be more awake, woke, you know.
Oh, they were trying to was DeSantis part of the thing, and they were stopping woke.
But it was all this. You had Sartre and Camus.
You know, but what I can
the
see,
age of enlightenment.
Yes, because
that's beautiful.
Before that time, the church had so much power in France. Remember the Inquisition time. We have a church.
The start of the salons.
Oh, il y a eu what we say. La nuit de la. We have a very well-known massacre in La nuit de la Saint Jean. I think it's the night of Saint Jean. It was a Protestant and Christian Catholic, make a war.
In St George.
No, George. He was on war. He was on jail due to the revolution.
Oh, okay.
And
because after he got with his mom and found his Blackness, hi, be more shorty. After he got with his mom, found his Blackness, and then finally started. His house went from being all white people to all Black people in his house. Oh, and then one day he's walking around France, and he didn't have did he have his hair on the day he found Josephine at the church?
Yeah, he had his wig on that day, I believe.
Okay, so he ends up seeing Josephine is pregnant, you guys. All of the raw dogging they had been doing as lovers ended up with her being with child. And I had been wondering about that. I was like, well, are they using pulling? Because they doing it a lot. She gonna end up with a Black baby, and that's gonna be a problem. Well, she ends up pregnant, goes to the church to pray about it. He catches her in the pew, and he's like, I see you with child. Is that my baby? And she's like, this is my husband's baby. What are you talking about? And he's like, look, I know it's my baby. We can go be together on that island. And she's like, no, we can't. And don't talk to me anymore. I'm a married woman. And leaves him in the hospital, in the church. And she walks out. So now he knows that he's expecting a child after everything that he went through in his life of being dropped off by the people. And he was really looking forward to trying to be a part of this child's life.
I will tell you that because I go verify my note about him. He was on jail during the terror because he was on very specific, affair during this time, during the revolution, and he finished his life in allegedly Saint-Domingue in his island. But he go to jail. He was liberated after that, but he was very not in a good place during the revolution. It was completely
right, because after that, he has all the Black people at his house, and they're all celebrating, just having fun. And he gets a frantic knock on the door. And it was the cousin. The cousin was finally like, what's her name again? Madame de Genlis. Madame de Genlis comes and knocks on the door.
Madame de
Genlis. And he was like, oh, what brings you here? And she's like, well, the baby was born. And he's like, oh, well, what happened? She said, oh, and it came out dark brown. And he's like, oh. She's like, well, where is my baby? And she's like, what's his name? The Montalembert took the baby and killed your son. And I was like, oh, so now he's like, what the heck? So that really ignited his passion for the revolution, even though him and Philip had already been going to some of the meetings along with Marie Josephine about the égalité, which is equality for everybody and lower taxes.
Yes,
And we all need
égalité.
to leave right.
Yes.
And so they were already under that notion, and that France needed to change, and it was being left behind because the rest of the world was advancing in those ways. And so he ended up being inspired to go to his friend Felipe and saying, I want to put on a concert with all the proceeds going to the revolution. And you just charge a fair price, and it's going to happen on this day. So, and this is all born out of the pain of finding out that, you know, his child was killed. So, because the child would not have been killed if égalité had been already there, they wouldn't have killed him for just being black. You know what I mean? So it really helped him get clear on what he needed to do for the revolution. So the night of his concert, everybody's marching in the streets, and they get to the opera house, and who's there but Marie Antoinette and Montalembert came. And she passed all the people protesting in the streets for months to walk up to her used to be best friend and tell him that if he does the thing, he was going to be arrested on the spot. If you play a note, I'm going to arrest your Negro ass, because as it turns out, I'm the queen and you a Negro. And you better do what I say. And she's like, he just looks at her and she leaves. Well, what does Chevalier de St George, Joseph Bologne, do? Takes off that white wig, goes up on that stage, grabs his fiddle, and before she could pull out the courtyard of the opera house, he starts playing the song his mother used to sing. The same song that when she got to his house, she said, you can play the song I used to sing you. And he's like, oh no, Mom, there are standards. But if you listened closely, it was the same song that got him into the school in the first part of the movie, you guys. It was beautiful. It's giving me goosebumps even now. It was a beautiful, moving piece. Beautiful. And so he's playing the piece. And then, of course, Marie looks at the Montalembert and she gives him the nod to go in and start arresting the people. And the man had just killed his son. He gets in to the opera house with his gun drawn, and he was going to shoot him for playing the notes. The lady said have him arrested. She didn't say kill him. But he hates the Negroes, so he was going to take it a step further. He had his thing cocked and ready to put his little pellet in the man's heart when St. George did a Prince move. The way he stopped that concert. And looked
Came down off that stage.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, wait, what's about to happen here? He got off that stage and walked right over to the gun and didn't say a word. Everybody else did, though. Everybody else in the place started screaming, liberté, liberté, égalité, égalité, liberté, liberté, égalité, égalité. And they were able to like get him to lower his gun. And St. George ended up walking out into the streets, passing Marie Antoinette with a one last Prince glare, just the slightest of a side eye and a wiggle of his shoulders, and off into the thing he went, off into the crowd he went. And then the movie was basically over. The byline said that Chevalier de St George went on to lead the first Black regiment in the revolution against Marie Antoinette and the monarchy. That it didn't say anything about what happened to the lady or anything like that. Oh, but I forgot one scene, you guys. One scene was she came back after the baby got killed. She comes back to the opera house while he was getting ready for the play to help the revolution, or the concert to help the revolution. and Marie Josephine comes back to the playhouse, and he's like, "What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be with your husband?" And she's like, "I carried the child. We can," and he's like, "Uh-huh." She said, "We can go be together now." He said, "No, we can't." And let her walk out of his life, because it was evident that you can't. It was like, unfortunately evident that the two could not exist under the current system, and that until egalite happened and everybody was liberated, that nobody was going to be free to love and have their kids or nothing. And so I really felt like it was such a wonderful movie, such a look into history. And then only to find out, you guys, the reason we never heard of Chevalier before, Chevalier de St George specifically, was
Napoleon.
because of Napoleon. And I happen to love Napoleons. That's one of my favorite patisseries.
It was very well-known story in France after Napoleon. The more than we knew that story. It was it was taught on a French.
Well, he ended up erasing him from history. He made sure that he was erased, and not Hitler, but Napoleon ended up making sure that Chevalier's works were erased and hidden. And it wasn't until I'm not even sure when they started coming back, but it was all because of Napoleon that his works were hidden for many years. And but he was basically the Black Mozart. He was even better than Mozart. And I just thought it was a beautiful, beautiful movie. And unfortunately, the world is still in the same fucking position here in 2023.
Yep.
They still have all these color constructs. They still have all of these rules about black, white, and other. There's still this classism going on. You still got to be careful who you love when you loving them. It's still so many parallels to centuries later. It's like, are we back in the Dark Ages again? I don't really know. But I just thought it was a beautiful, beautiful movie. I think everybody should go on their Hulu account right now and go watch this excellent rendition.
It is on Disney Plus too. You have it on Disney Plus. I see it on.
It's on Hulu for free though,
but not here.
Out here, it's on Hulu.
Oh, we don't have Hulu in France, so we have Disney Plus.
Oh yeah, so out here
in
it's
Europe,
on Hulu.
it's on Disney Plus.
Awesome. Well, hopefully you guys will be able to see it. And if you do, I would love to have your comments dropped about what was your favorite part. What were your thoughts? Had you ever heard of him before? How impressed were you at knowing that there was a Black classical, like huge classical piece of music was due to this Black composer that we never even heard of? We've been thinking it's all, just powdered white people, and it's like full of like.
But you know what? I think this is where the rumor is that Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was Black. They got him confused with Chevalier.
Yes.
We have Alexandre Dumas. Alexandre Dumas was Black.
Yes.
He wrote Monte Cristo and Mousquetaire.
Monte Cristo, the sandwich?
Monte Cristo, no.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we all know that Alexandre Dumas was Black. But what I'm saying here,
look, I'm looking him up now. Who the heck is Alexandre Dumas?
He wrote the Three Musketeers.
Oh, okay, yeah, that guy. Yeah, okay, I know him.
The Count of Monte Cristo.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that guy. Yeah, Alexander.
And the Count of Monte Cristo, it was a story so well known and used and reused in so much movie and French TV show, but it was that. And we have Aimé Césaire too. We have Frantz Fanon.
And sorry to cut you off, Sarah, but Alexandre Dumas and Chevalier have a similar story.
Really?
Yes, but not at the same time. Very late. It's very late. Alexandre Dumas, it's very late on the French history.
They have a similar upbringing, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Oh, well, slave, master, dropped off.
Yes. It's why you when you knew the story of Alexandre Dumas, you understand much better the story of Monte Cristo in some way.
Yes, and Ernestine was loosely based on him, Chevalier, instead of it being a young boy dropped off at a school
It was a girl,
and
right?
abandoned. It was a woman being abandoned by her husband to go off to war. So yeah, and I believe Ernestine was Victoria's very favorite opera.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to yes.
So as it turned out, Chevalier did 7 operas. Chevalier. He did Ernestine, opera aria for soprano and piano, and that was in 1777 and 1790. That's amazing. He's done so many other operas too. Let me see.
I put some
I saw your links in the chat for more history on Chevalier. Thank you, Corey. You guys be sure and check out these links that Corey dropped if you want more information on this fascinating story and this historical figure that has obviously stood true of the test of time, because Ernestine, we've heard of Ernestine, but didn't hear of Chevalier. It's beautiful. So she put 3 links up here if you go back in the chat, and you'll be able to see some more information. Now let me see. Bonaparte is the reason I don't like short men. I know. And right? Napoleon complex, for real.
And he couldn't stand black people, but his wife was a mulatto.
Did you guys know that Napoleon's wife was a mulatto?
Yes, she was a métis. We say that she was a mulâtre in France, but she has métis. And you know,
she was a Caribbean mulatto. Yes.
Yeah, she passed in white. And I started to
dance real good.
I will tell you that the New Orleans, Nouvelle-Orléans, I started to France. Sure for that. And the first colony, Virginia, everything like that, is tied to France. When you have a French name in some city, it's French. Paris.
Well, that's because, from my recollection, what I've studied is that French and other countries in Europe used America as like the prison system, and they would send people that they didn't like here, and it was basically a country for Alcatraz. And they would I'm just giving my theory. I'm just giving my theory right now. So they would send over not only their lowest, but their most challenged kind of people over here to try to make a way over here, because they didn't want them in France anymore. And specifically, if you were a black Frenchman who was free, they sent you over here. So there's a whole what's it called? A whole population of what's called French freemen here. And they were never supposed to have had to be slaves, because they were technically freed Frenchmen.
Yes. But we have the Orly and we have the Guyane for the Bagne. We have a very well-known place in Guyane. It's called the Bagne, and it's a place when you tend a prisoner. And we have the Bastille Water prison. But for USA, in France, not for, in France, in England, English people was, the people who they have a religion, and they are persecuted, and they go away too much to be
right, when you get persecuted for religious reasons.
Yes, but the second fact is the money to make food, to make production, to have land. The beginning of the story between the French and Native American was very nice, and after that you have the English. And when the English come, it was nice.
I don't know how nice it was,
because France was the first friendly country of the new United States in 1778, and there was an alliance between the two countries, and subsequent aid provided from France provided decisive in American victory over Britain in the American Revolution.
Yes.
And it's important because of that reason. And look, that's 1 year after he started composing the Ernestine opera is when France and the United States started playing nice. But interesting.
They play nice in the beginning, but I don't know what's
in the time of Jefferson and his treachery to his slave Sally Hemings.
Yes. He never free her. He never free her.
No, of course not. Why would he free his concubine?
For my part, what something is questioning so much.
And her brother, which is so funny, Sally Hemings' brother was part of the French Revolution as well.
Yes.
And
a colonizing party of 500 and a mission of 4 Franchins were sent in 1611 and found that they arrived on the island. The mission established trade for tobacco and Brazil wood.
Yep.
Support the colony and the colonists was abandoned. Oh. The Portuguese soon managed to expel the French from the colony.
Yep.
Oh, interesting.
Exactly.
So, I'm not sure if you look, there's actually maps of how the French and France began colonizing the Americas in the 16th century. They had their hand heavy in the slave trade.
They did.
Very heavy in the slave trade. Because the only way to get the real rulers out of the houses of France was to make them slaves and ship them to another country. Because I'm pretty sure still, like I keep saying, that the dark ages was when Moors were ruling everything. And there's politely no history from that age. And I used to think they called it dark because it went dark. Like there was nothing to say about it. But it's dark because they erased everything like they do with all the other Black history. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have any information on that?
I think that is a possibility, is why they called it the Dark Ages. But what they tell us in school is it's the Dark Ages because there were no significant there was no law. It was lawless. It was
lawlessness.
It was there were no
we do at this time
no inventions made that would further man. That's probably why they called the Dark Ages. That's what they told us in school.
They call the Dark Ages is the 900 years between the 5th and 14th century. That's pretty much when Black people were ruling
exactly
everything.
what the Dark Ages, because I studied that in university. It was a time when the church have so much power you don't have the right to speak. Yes. And it was always, the science was not there.
Yeah, it was the decline in culture and science.
Yes, the church have so much power. Remember, you have the Catholicism and the Protestantism at the time. You have the Christianism in one thing. Christian is everything. Okay, but first, in France, it was the Catholic Church. And after that, you have the Protestant coming from, Europe. When we say Dark Ages, we call it obscurantism. It's the time when the church takes the mind of people and you don't have any right to do blasphemy, to have laws, to have free sexuality. It's a very church, the Catholic Church, with all its power. And at this time, I will tell you that you can go jail because you can say the earth is around.
So right now, you can still go to jail?
At this time, you can go in jail. You can be killed because you say times. Remember, at this time, the Inquisition was before, but during that time, Inquisition, you can use, any plants, and you can use plants in the forest to heal people. You can call a witch and you go in the Inquisition and you can kill by that. If you have much money than the church, you can be killed by the church because you are not a good Catholic. The darkest and the books was complicated to have. The knowledge was, okay, I will make a comparison. The pro-choice you have in USA, we have that during that time, during the obscurantism. To have, say, oh, the earth is flat. Oh, you can use that. You can do that. You can do that. The same thing for me, and what we knew from French is that Dark Ages. When you have the science, when you have the mind and the light of the mind, have the belief, because it's a belief for them. It
says that the what stopped during the Dark Ages, if you Google what stopped, it says the loss of classical culture philosophy, literature, art, law, religion, all spread out hundreds of different directions
Exactly.
with an ascent of the Dark Ages through Western civilization, took a new course and ended. Many branches of culture died off and were cut short. But if you look at what was died off and cut short, it had everything to do with Black Moors and their freaking kingdoms and stuff. Look.
You know, in French, we don't say dark ages, we say obscurity.
You don't say, oh, I like that, because you know how I feel
Mhm.
about using
Because
the
you know
word
the
dark to
light,
describe
yes, dark
negativity.
ages
Yeah.
is obscurity. It's calling obscurantism. Obscurantism
Yeah.
is the power of the religion on your mind, because it's a religious time. At this time, if
Right.
you joke about
Yeah.
Jesus, you know,
Yeah,
Jesus Superstar, if you want to do that at this time, you're gonna be on the butcher and you're gonna
Yeah.
be fired. Like
yeah, the Moors had control of Normandy at this
yes,
at
and
this point.
the sexual life at this time during Catholicism, you have sex at the date the church can say okay, and you can have maybe you can have sex just to have babies, so no other position was agreed. If you do
Right.
anything else and the church know, you go to jail.
Right. It says historians used dark as a pejorative term rather, to mean a period of superstition and stagnation in art, literature, and science. Dark Ages stuck, and so did the misconception that it was a period full of unenlightened people wandering around in the dark.
Exactly.
Oh my. Oh wow. So that is the movie that we saw. I really think everybody should go see it.
You can
It'll
you have the fun part with Sofia Coppola and the movie she made with about Marie Antoinette. You have the movie with
Yeah, I love
Leonardo.
that. That's my favorite.
It's not the
with who? Is that the lady from Spider-Man?
yes, Kristen Dunst. Yes,
Sophia
it was
Coppola.
very
Yeah.
Mhm, Kristen Dunst.
I did see that Marie Antoinette.
Yeah, her
I kind
brother's
of liked
in
it.
Mhm.
I kind of like that Marie Antoinette. But I
yes,
really like seeing it from this person's. You know, I've heard of Marie
Point of view.
Antoinette, yay, yay. But I really, you know, as a Black person, I really like seeing and hearing about this one of a kind excellence that existed during that time.
in France you have
Mhm.
very rare case. I think it's one of that. The only one we have is calling Jacques Le Croquant, but it's much, you know, from probity to be an aristocrat. It's otherwise also
She
same.
said,
Jacques Le
qui
Croquant.
is manger de la brioche. Qui
Non,
is manger de la brioche.
ils n'ont qu'à manger de la brioche.
Yeah, that's what she said. That's what she said. To have been spoken in the 18th century by a great princess upon being told the peasants had no bread. The French phrase mentions brioche, and bread enriched with butter and eggs considered a luxury food.
Yeah,
And the quote was taken to reflect either the princess's frivolous regard for the starving peasants and her poor understanding of their plight.
Yes.
Although the phrase traditionally attributed to Marie Antoinette, it can be traced back to Jean-Jacques Rousseau in 1765, 24 years before that.
Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
Oh, and it was only attributed to her decades after her death, and they don't agree that she is likely to have even said it. Interesting. And you're right, it was just all tabloids to make them make her seem like a daft woman, unfit to lead the country.
She was, you know, very young, and she was very on thing, and she was not like a Catherine de Medicis at all. She doesn't have the shoulder to be a queen.
Yeah, well, Charlotte was she was educated.
Catherine de Medicis was.
Kathleen was educated. Yeah, Catherine was educated as well. Marie was not.
Yes, she was. Catherine de Medicis was a Medicis. She was from Italy, so they used to know what is the game on the court. The Germans
and fun fact here, Elizabeth II was not educated as a woman as well. She had to hire a tutor when she became queen
Oh,
to teach her
so
math,
she
to
couldn't
teach her
read.
everything. She was ignorant.
The ignorance was heavy in her blood. Was she
Yes,
an inbred also?
of course.
She
Of
was
course,
dumb
but
and inbred.
you know her
Course.
mother was very
All of
close.
the all of the royals were inbred.
Was inbred.
All of them.
All of them. You need to understand that they're all
She
inbred.
even married her cousin, who is
You
a
know,
That
direct
is
descendant of Victoria, like her.
yes, you know, all
Philip
their
was a direct descendant of Victoria.
yes.
so. Is the reason? Is this a silly question? So incest is illegal, right?
It's not incest to brother and sister, it's more
Do-
cousins. But maybe
Is
of
Philip,
the
incest if your brother and sister not cousins?
yeah, well, yeah, that's kind of incest too. Because if first cousins have a baby together, something's going to be wrong.
yes, you know,
with
when
that
you
child.
have kids with your cousins, it's gonna be complicated.
I think Philip was like her second cousin, but still, a cousin is a cousin.
That's disgusting.
A cousin is a cousin. Okay.
This is just bizarre. When you hear about all this, it just doesn't seem right to make relatives screw. Like that's what they would do to slaves on the plantation. They would make the son screw the mother and the father screw the daughters, all so they could continue breeding, also they could continue breeding slaves. Like it's just really nasty. That's disgusting.
Yeah, there is a YouTube video about the slave breeding farms. I have to find it and I'll put it in one of the chats on
Yeah.
IG.
Well,
let
I
me
would
see if I can
appreciate
find it
that.
now and put it in this chat.
Okay. And then Sarah, I promise that after
Okay.
we did the review of the movie, you could do some of your awesome French history about the Chevalier de St George is who I really want to hear about. If you know some more about him.
You know, he died very young. He was on, okay, what is the date of his death? He was 53 years old, 53. And he died at, let me 1 minute to tell you the date of his death. He was born in 1745. He died in 1799. He was in Paris. So he died very young. 53 was died. 53 died. He had a very short story in his life. Very short life for him. But at this time, 53, it was to be old, you know, very old. But yes, it was very interesting. But Alexandre Dumas, you need to see his story. It's very interesting. And Frantz Fanon too. They are, you know, French, but Black people, very interesting. Because Alexandre Dumas, he had a very strong story from my part. When I say that, it's true. It's why I loved him. He was a very nice person. LRGA, are you here?
Yeah.
She's
probably looking at what I just put up there.
Okay. But yes, I recommend that. And if you want to have more of French, you have the movie. Okay. You know the Pact of Wolf. It was interesting because it's a fantastic movie, but they speak about the terror. And you have, I think.
The Affair of the Necklace. Oh, that's my favorite movie.
Yes, the necklace. It was, you know, it was a scam.
The Hope Diamond.
Yes, but the necklace was a fake. She doesn't have anything on that story. They tried just to make her have a bad images. She was not so much, you know, smart to do that.
Well, she was trying to get revenge. They turned her father out, and they took her title. They took her land. They turned her. She was trying to ruin the French court, and I don't blame her.
She doesn't try to do anything bad to the French court. She was victim for me. She was really victim, Marie Antoinette. She was a victim.
I'm not talking about Marie. I'm talking about the Affair of the Necklace.
The necklace affair.
She was sure that Marie and all of them took her took her. They killed her father.
The necklace affair, she was
in the affair. Yes. Yeah, she used her body to get revenge for what happened to her family. And they say the Hope Diamond was the
I will tell you the story of the necklace of the queen. It was Madame Lamotte. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
She was a scammer. Okay. She go to see the Cardinal of Rouen and the Cagliostro. Okay. Madame Lamotte, Mrs. Lamotte. She tried by the Cardinal to earn the favor of Marie Antoinette to have a necklace of diamonds. This man, Mr. Rouen, or Cardinal Rouen, buy a necklace for the queen to Mrs. Lamotte. Okay, but what happened is the queen never knew the story about this affair. She never knew that. And
yeah, I know.
The necklace would disappear. The thing was not paid, and what is due, Louis XVI, they said no, we need to speak out that publicly. He make Rouen go to the Bastille jail, and the queen was in fact stained by the scandal, but she doesn't do anything at the right. What happened? Mrs. Lamotte, she go to the Bastille. She was on the whip, à la flétrissure. I don't know what it, she was marked on the red metal on her skin like a cow. And she go to the jail. But the church make Mr. Cardinal de Rouen just doesn't go in jail. So he doesn't know. And after that, you have this same necklace was by Louis XV for Madame du Barry, and they use this model, But the story of the necklace is that Madame de Lamotte was very jealous for her, but she doesn't do anything. The story of the necklace. Everybody say, "Oh no, she never see this necklace. The necklace was fake." So,
well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you telling us that little French history, Sarah. And Corey,
very long story for that.
I know, right? We need to do a 6-hour live for that kind.
Oh, I think you just have maybe 1 century. I studied maybe 10 years French history to understand everything, and sometimes after it. So it's very long. We have maybe 10 centuries of history.
Well, my interest in French history comes from my mom. This whole house had Louis XIV reproduction furniture. And that was my mom's thing. That was her thing. And she loved
right on,
Louis XIV.
Thank you for coming through.
Manny.
Can you guys drop Manny's link?
I sure will.
He has a channel in these YouTube streets, and he was over on Diva's channel the other day, and he gave a stellar POV on whatever subject that was. And I was like, kudos, Manny, kudos.
I love Manny.
Me too. So
very smart young man.
Yes.
No, man.
He's very balanced in his perception and reasonable. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's not too skewed one way or the other. I appreciate it. So
guys, check out.
Now, me and my mom is in town, and she wants to go to this place because we're starting this program this week. And so she was like, she wants to go to this place out here called Friends with Benedict's Mimosa House.
Eggs with Benedict's, yes, it's very.
But it's called Friends with Benedict's Mimosa House, and they have 50 different kinds of Benedicts, and mimosas, every different kind of mimosa you could think. They have cotton candy, sunrise, all different kinds. And so we were going to go over there this afternoon because we actually were going to go for Mother's Day, but she had a thing. So we were getting ready to go over there. I wanted to thank you guys for coming through and sharing your time with me over here in these YouTube streets. I hope you enjoyed my first movie review, Chevalier. If I catch another awesome movie, I'll beg Corey to watch that too, and then we can come back up here, and even Sarah, because I just wanted her to see the prince of it all. Like, okay, Sarah, you came up late, but I was saying in the beginning of the movie, I felt like the actor in Chevalier channeled Prince the singer a little bit. Like I felt like he had a little.
Yes.
He did. You saw it too?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Do you know what? Before you go, Be More Shorty mentioned Under the Cherry, Prince's movie Under the Cherry Moon, and it just clicked on me that it reminds it's a little bit of a story like Chevalier.
It's a little Chevalier, huh?
Mm-hmm. A little Shimon.
Yes, exactly. Okay, now I'm reading this. Okay, yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. Totally.
It's like Prince knew that story. It's it's like he knew that story. You know what I mean?
Well, Prince, if you look at Prince and the actual Google image of Chevalier, they look very similar from when he did his "Wanna Be Your Lover" on American Bandstand that day. He looks very like Chevalier. He looks like Chevalier literally looked.
We see the way
and then he was self-taught.
The way he moved.
He was a protege and a virtuoso. He could write all different kinds of things. I feel like maybe Prince was Chevalier reincarnated at this point.
There's possibility.
It could be. Yes, it definitely was inspired. I'm gonna have to go check out Under the Cherry Moon. And I hope you guys check out Chevalier. Check out my girl Corey over on Lola Lane. And be sure you ring their bells because you need to know when they're going live again so we can have a full house. And Sarah Bay from Paris will be doing the next Ladies Who Kiki probably next weekend, maybe.
Yes.
Maybe next weekend on Ladies Who Kiki channel.
Yes, I will try to prepare it.
Okay. And everybody check out Emmanuel. Thanks for coming through. Be More Shorty. And who else was in the house? I saw Mademoiselle H and Bianca Edwards and any other Curvies who were just lurking in the back. Thanks for coming through. See you in the replay. Viva les résistance! Égalité! Liberté!
Oh, vive la révolution!
Viva la révolution! Okay? This should not be 2023, and we're still going through the shit that Chevalier went through in 1777, y'all. Things need to change. Things need to change. See you in the next video.
Bonjour.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.